G'day guys, today I sat down with the great Frasier Parry and we talked about the World Eaters updates in the recent balanced data slate. We talked about how Frasier believes that the World Eaters are in the top 3 most competitive factions in the game right now, and we broke down specifically why Frasier thinks that is the case. So with that being said, let's jump into the video.
Exalted.
G'day guys, check out our merchandise at exalted40k.com, including sets of range rulers with 9, 6, 3, 2 and 1 inch faces, as well as 1 inch markings all the way along, making quick and accurate measurements a breeze. Rectangular blessings trackers for convenient record keeping, and chain axe blessing trackers for when merely taking records is not good enough. Dice and dice trays that in tandem ensure your rolls do not betray you like a certain someone on the killing fields of Scalathrax. Objective markers for an exalted gaming experience that are just begging to be drowned in the blood of friend or foe on the battlefield. Show your support for the channel and head over to exalted40k.com to equip yourself as an exalted wargamer today. Frasier, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to join us to talk about this exciting update for the World Eaters. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good. It's getting later here in Canada, so a little tired, but always down to talk about some World Leader stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
hell yeah.
certainly exciting. Yeah, I was not expecting the volume of changes that we got, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking through it and I was expecting maybe a few points changes here or there. I didn't
Yeah.
expect data sheet changes, which is fantastic to see. What's your first reaction to these changes?
Uh, First of all, I thought that World Leaders were actually kind of in need of like a little bit of a nerf. I run a few armies. I was on kind of like an Emperor's Children chain for a bit. I specifically was not bringing World Leaders in my local leagues because I thought they were already actually a little too strong and nobody was really having fun with it, like even in competitive leagues. So I was kind of changing things up a bit. I thought we were great before the changes. And then when I saw Exalted went to 3 damage, that's absolutely huge, regardless of some point reshuffling. And the Slaughterbound changes are also like very, very, very impactful. So I'm very happy with where we're sitting. And obviously, this is the last change before the World Championships of Warhammer, which I will be attending. So I'm very happy that I have arguably a top 3 army in the game now heading into it. I think it's going to make a huge difference to world leaders and world leader lists and players and outcomes. And I think we could probably expect a little bit of a tone back the next time we get changes, but I'm really excited to see what happens for the next few months.
Yeah, I dare say that the Exalted 8 bound probably didn't need the data sheet change and the points reduction. They probably could have just had one of those. But
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
complaining. Absolutely not complaining.
No, no, no.
Um, So
Yeah,
there were a few nerfs in there as well, like the Forge Fiend, Khan, and the Spawn. So do you think that
yeah.
overall this change was a significant positive change for the World Eaters, or do you think it sort of just provided a bit of internal balance?
I think there's been some degree of internal balance. I think you still absolutely take minimum 2 spawn. I still have 2 Forge Fiends in all the lists that I've written with the new points. And obviously, Karn is a fantastic tool. Karn is still probably too cheap for his rules
Yeah.
for what he does. He's absolutely incredible. I think that a lot of people generally in their singles lists probably lost anywhere between like 20 and like 40-ish points with the changes, depending on what you're running with your list. So that's all kind of made up for now with 8 bound going down, and you're including more 8 bound variants in like the higher level Berserker Warband competitive lists. So I think in general, like we're certainly more competitive than we were, but it's a nice kind of reshuffling to encourage us to take different units in the codex as well that weren't currently getting like any attention.
Yeah, I agree. I think most of the lists that I had didn't really go up in points because, yeah, the Forge Fiends went up, and the Spawn went up, but we had those reductions in 8 bound. So if you swap one Forge Fiend out for some Exalted 8 bound, that just brings you right back into a similar sort of points range. So
Yeah,
total, it didn't really cost us that many in points if you do a little bit of shuffling with your units, but the changes to the Exalted 8 bound are actually quite relevant in that we now have an infantry unit that's small that can threaten vehicles really effectively, which is something that we
yeah,
kind of lacked previously. So overall, I definitely think it's a positive change for the world leaders. I completely agree. So you mentioned there the Berserker Warband.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the changes, particularly the changes to the 8 bound, make the Slaughter Band detachment interesting now, or do you think it's still clearly the Berserker Warband? And also the changes to the Land Raider, whether or not you think that makes Gortrak interesting. What are your sort of thoughts on internal balance and this balance update and its impact on the detachments?
So first and foremost, I still think Warband is the most competitive, and I don't think it's particularly close. Like at this point, I believe that Warband exists in S tier, and there's nothing really in A tier, and potentially Gortrak now exists somewhere in like B tier with Demonkin. For the Slaughter Band detachment to be a consideration for me at all, I would need a very, very simple change, and that would literally be the 3-inch deep strike stratagem
Yeah.
changes because it is absolute garbage like it is. Not being able to charge after, change it to 6. Change it to 6 and let me charge afterwards. And then there'll be something to stand on in that detachment. But currently, I think it's just, I don't think it's in a good enough spot for me to want to take it. I don't think 8 bound damage is now an issue, especially. I think with the changes to Exalted, you're almost like less inclined to take the detachment as you were before. Just because, yes, like 8 bound are cheaper, but now Exalted already have like +1 damage, 3 damage into vehicles. And the only real reason to run the 8 bound detachment would be to push through additional damage into large blocks and like large vehicles. And you're just losing so much utility that you have in Warband through the additional movement in the Berserkers, and through the -1 damage in melee. Like I know you have a -1 to wound strap, but it's 2 CP. There's not a lot of -1 to wound straps that are 2 CP. A lot of them are 1 CP, especially like I played Yunari earlier in the year. I had that for 1 CP. And the auto fight on death is nice, but we already have like an army wide 4-up fight on death. So I just rather have the toolkit that exists in Berserker Warband personally than the one that I'm offered in the Slaughter Band. And as far as Gortrak, I haven't done a lot of research into Gortrak itself. There might be some potential legs there. I know that a lot of the stipulations and about half the stratagems are only exclusively for rhinos. So I don't know how much of a difference it would make specifically because Berserkers are literally just better in Warband, and that's what basically you're putting in rhinos. I would need to do a deeper dive to give an educated opinion on Gortrak. I have no doubt that somebody somewhere could absolutely make it work in an event. And I'm not saying that it can't win games, but if I'm going to like the World Championships or like a big Canadian Open or something, I need to have the best list possible. And I believe that still exists in Warband.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think with the with Gortrak and the Slaughter Band, I think both of those revolve around like one really cool trick, whereas
Yeah,
Warband has several, right? And Warband's main trick, for me at least, is the sticky objectives on death. It sounds subtle, but the fact that you can like throw out your spawn, kill something off an objective, and just sit your spawn on there, and your opponent cannot just shoot you off. They have to bring their units in, which unlocks your units that have staged. That back and forth is very, very hard to replace with another trick. So the trick that you would replace that with has to be really, really good. The Slaughter Band, the way I see that one is you take the character, you attach him to a big unit of 8 bound or Exalted 8 bound, and you put the enhancement on him to give 5+ critical hits, and then you basically just send him out. You keep spamming that neg 1 to wound, keep the unit alive, keep blood surging into things, keep resurrecting models as you're taking slow casualties. Like, that trick's really good, but it's like, what's the rest of the army? The rest of the army is just subpar compared to Warband. And a similar thing with the Gortrak. You can take a Land Raider, it can move through walls, you can then disembark, charge, kill something, jump back into the Land Raider in your own turn, and that unit also has fights first, so that if it does get caught out, it's going to be a problem for your opponent to deal with. Like, that's a really, really cool combo. But
yeah,
what's the rest of the list? You know, like, it
yeah,
feels like the rest of the list is kind of lacking. Whereas in Berserker's Warband, like, every unit is just crazy. You know, your spawn are crazy, your 8 bound are crazy, your Exalted are crazy. Like, everything gets that sort of buff. So I think you're right. I think that unfortunately the Berserker Warband will still be the go-to for those high
Yeah.
competitive games. But I think, like you said, some people are going to make these other detachments work. I have no doubt. G'day guys, want to join us and become an exalted wargamer? Then check out our Patreon. Show your support for the free YouTube content with a monthly supporter subscription. Think of it like buying me a beer to say thanks, mate. Gain access to the exalted community, including our Discord server where we discuss everything from tactics, strategy, list writing advice to memes, banter, and hobby updates. Join Team Exalted for more direct coaching and advice in preparation for upcoming events, and get tailored advice for key meta environments and matchups, or help working through some of the more challenging and complex aspects of Warhammer 40k. Or become part of the Exalted Inner Circle for access to private one-on-one coaching, including video calls and more, a dedicated coaching service aimed to provide mentorship and drive real improvement. Check out exalted40k.com for more information and become an Exalted Wargamer today. What are your thoughts on Angron? He got some points reductions. Do you think he's back into play, or do you think he's still rubbish?
I would have liked Angron to see a little bit of a rewrite, to be honest. I just think his rules currently, unless there's some stick with 20-man Berserker squads and then involving Angron for like the no fallback aura, maybe something exists like in that element, but I think it's very specific. And then if people just roll their leadership, then your whole army just dies. So it's not really something I'd like to rely on. I think Exalted having a better role now, improving drastically, actually makes less of a case for Angron.
I agree.
Just because like our army rule is so good that losing it when Angron comes back to just rely on a 9-inch charge is such a huge risk to have to take in the army, that even if Angron was good for his points without coming back, which I genuinely don't believe he is, I just think the comeback mechanic is almost something that even if I had the option to bring him back, I honestly don't know if I would, just because then you're banking on the 9, and a rerollable 9 is like the odds on it aren't what I would want in a competitive game. It's not a risk I really want to take, and then the rest of my army is losing buffs and suffering because of it. So I still don't think he's great for his points. I think his mechanics need a little bit of a rework somewhere, because Exalted feel like a great anti-tank role now. And guess what? They can go through buildings. They can hide in corners. Their ingress threat is incredible. And I just think Angron is less of a role now than he did before.
Yeah, I agree. I think they kind of took his job. And in terms of that, the resurrection mechanic, not only are you going for a 9-inch rerollable charge, which is unlikely, but you already have to have done the unlikely thing of resurrecting him before you even get to that stage. So you're stacking unlikely things on top of each other, and you're paying the price of losing your army rule for it. It's like, it's just... Well, on the positive side, I guess GW have demonstrated that they have the capacity to do datasheet rewrites via these balance updates. So it's entirely possible that in a future update they will give Angron a rewrite. However, I think if we're going, another 3 months from now is the next update, and then 3 months after that we're probably looking at 11th edition, or close enough too. So I think we're probably not going to see a solution to Angron, and I doubt
maybe there's
points more.
Maybe there's a Grotmus detachment that makes Angron work somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think Angron kind of works. He kind of works in Khorne Demonkin because a lot of that army doesn't really benefit from your blessings. Like if you've got a couple Forge Fiends, they don't really benefit from the blessings. And then you've got like a Scarbrand and a Bloodthirster, and you're playing a Monster Mash style list, and all of a sudden it doesn't really matter if you don't have your blessings. And so he can work in a Khorne Demonkin, but outside of that, I don't think he really fits the...
It would need to be specifically a Monster Mash, because if you're just including one big model, then Scarbrand absolutely plays the game better than
100%,
Angron does currently.
100%.
Yeah. I think somebody at GW had Index Angron. One of their buddies was playing it, and he came back like 3 times in a game or something. So we're being punished for that. Yeah. is what it feels like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've all had those... This is one of my favorite things about Warhammer, right? Is selective memory, where what I do is I remember there was a game that I played about 2 years ago when the Worldies sort of first came out, and I resurrected Angron 3 times in that one game. And I'll remember that game because that was exciting and awesome. I forget all of the games that he never comes back. So in my mind, he's super reliable because I just remember the times when he did come back. And I've got that positive view of the past, but unfortunately that's not how it works if you're trying to win tournaments. So
Yeah.
I think unfortunately Angron is still going to sit on the shelf. Did you digest much of the other factions and what happened with them? Because obviously, if World Eaters have just got a bit of a buff and they were already very
Yeah.
good, that could look really great in isolation. But if other factions also got buffs, then we
Yeah.
kind of didn't. Whereas if other factions got nerfs, well, that makes the buffs that we received even more significant. So have you had time to digest the other factions?
I've looked into a couple. So generally, within my city, there's a few pretty specific competitive players. So it was more just looking into the factions that they play specifically to seeing how they're going to be doing for the next few months. I was surprised to see Death Guard getting no further changes. So I definitely think that Death Guard are still going to be consistent, which is not a bad thing because I honestly think the World Leaders game into Index Death Guard, like I have yet to play against Death Guard and have a game within like 40 points. Like I've won and I've yet for to be within a 40-point margin.
Yeah.
So I think we have a great matchup into Death Guard. I think Death Guard are going to continue to be strong. I liked seeing Knight variants allegedly take a hit. I don't know how much we're going to get affected by the Imperial Knights Codex. I think that Chaos Knights continue to be a problem for us, but I think that Exalted really helps shore that up. And I also think that it helps that the optimal build to deal with World Leaders with a Fight First Rampager in like the character detachment is not the best way to run Chaos Knights anymore.
Yeah.
I think that also helps us greatly. Thousand Suns going down was great because if you could touch them, it kind of shut the army down before. But if you couldn't, I played a Thousand Suns game and he shot one of my Maulers and two of my Forge Fiends with Vortex Beasts, and every single wound roll was a 6 for Dev, and then every single damage was a 6 for 12 damage. And this is on TTS, and I'm like, I hate TTS dice. So I think it was a good thing. Thousand Suns going down for sure. I think the World Leaders are kind of in a really, really weird spot because I saw a statistic where even though we had like a 48% win rate, we still had, I think it was close to the third most tournament wins this edition. Yeah. So it's kind of an army where it doesn't exactly play how the data sheets tell you it has to play at face value. But if you're somebody that can make the army sing, like you already felt great about it. So I think that now it's going to be it's a big deal. And I think we have a lot of good matchups in the meta. I haven't really struggled with a lot of matchups recently. A lot of the boogeymen that existed got addressed. I think Knights were hard for us before, but Knights came down, and us getting the Exalted is a huge buff.
Yeah.
So I think in general, we're going to be actually sitting in a really, really, really good spot in the meta. Like Templars are popular, but they're a melee army, right? Like Gladius Templars are good, and I know they have a reactive move to get back in their transports, but they're a melee army that's predominantly 2 damage, and we have -1 damage, fight on death across the we have all the tools we need to go into a lot of the strong armies right now. And I think in general, we should be feeling really, 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 really good.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think to your point about the like the win rate being around the middle, but a high representation of tournament wins, I think what that is it's a reflection of the fact that we have some rules that on face value seem kind of subtle, but when applied, they're absolutely devastating. Things like the 6-inch pylon and consolidate. In the hands of a true master of the fight phase, that rule is fucked up. The things you can do with it are just truly
it's disgusting.
The amount of times that my opponents just looked at and then I've done that 6-inch pylon and consolidator here and then again over here, and he's like, "Oh, is that army wide?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "What the hell?" In the hands of somebody who really knows what they're doing, that's going to propel you to those tournament wins. However, as with every faction, there's going to be a decent portion of the people that play that aren't masters of that phase, and therefore they're going to sort of drag that win rate down because they don't know how to really access and utilize those tools. So I think that's what we're sort of seeing with World Eaters in particular, because there is a big difference between somebody who has mastered combat and who hasn't. Whereas something like Guard, Imperial Guard, it's like, can you shoot things? Yes. Like, it doesn't require much mastery
All those other
typically
armies are so easy to play.
Yeah, exactly.
We're the real masters out here.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm gonna put my shoulder out, patting myself on the back. But
God, we're so good at 40k. Yeah.
I do think that combat is a man's game. Like that's how the real men play 40k is getting into combat. But yeah, I think it's overall a really positive change for the World Eaters. G'day guys, check out our merchandise at exalted40k.com, including sets of range rulers with 9, 6, 3, 2 and 1 inch faces, as well as 1 inch markings all the way along, making quick and accurate measurements a breeze. Rectangular blessings trackers for convenient record keeping, and chain axe blessing trackers for when merely taking records is not good enough. Dice and dice trays that in tandem ensure your rolls do not betray you like a certain someone on the killing fields of Scalathrax. Objective markers for an exalted gaming experience that are just begging to be drowned in the blood of friend or foe on the battlefield. Show your support for the channel and head over to exalted40k.com to equip yourself as an exalted wargamer today. Have you had any time to like write new lists and what sort of direction you're heading? Are you keeping something that's somewhat similar to your existing list and just tweaking it for the points? Or are you do you have a process where you like go back to the drawing board and start from like first principles?
So as soon as I saw the points and the exalted change, I immediately pulled out like a notepad and I wrote down a list specifically that I can definitely see myself bringing to the next couple of GTs. So I have a 80-man this coming weekend and then 100-man 2 weekends afterwards. And I'm 100% confident in the list that I've written. I haven't had time to practice it yet. But I feel absolutely fantastic about it. I think it's incredible. And there is a small adjustment depending on play style to be able to change the list depending on like what you're feeling. But it's a singles list that I feel like very, very, very good about. So obviously I don't have it in front of me, but I'll remember it to the best of my ability. So initially the characters in the list are going to be Karn, who still exists with a 10-man Berserker.
Yep.
There's going to be a Slaughterbound, and then there's going to be another Slaughterbound that has the Berserker Glaive. Now, I know might be a controversial unit because it does way too much damage. You might not need it. But if somebody puts 2 War Dogs slightly too close together, being able to put the Exalted squad into one of the War Dogs and the Slaughterbound like basing the other and just dealing with both is a really big deal.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think it's just funny. It's just 4 damage is so funny. And then I brought the Demon Prince still, except this iteration of the list, it's exactly 2,000 points, and I gave up the Helm on him to put Favorite on him.
Okay.
But there's another version of the list where he keeps Helm, but it didn't fit in the points. If I had literally 5 more points, I'd probably take Helm instead of Favorite. But it is what it is. He is lone op anyway. You just can't do the aggressive, I'm going to put him on the middle, and then my opponent can't have anything that can kill him that can move within 12, because now lots of stuff is 2 damage and he's more likely to die. So you have to play a little more conservatively with him, but I'm comfortable with that because that was generally what I was doing in my games anyway. So those are the 4 characters.
Yep. And
then we have the Berserkers. And then we have 2 squads of regular 8-bound, 2 squads of Exalted that'll start in Ingress. We have a squad of Jackals. We have 2 Forge Fiends. And then we have, obviously, the Rhino, and then 3 squads of Spawn.
Yep, perfect.
And I really like the 3 squads of Spawn. I think they're absolutely fantastic. The small variation you can kind of make to that list is you can take out 1 squad of Spawn, and you can replace it with another squad of Jackals. And then you can put the Helm back onto the Prince, and then move the Favorite down to the other Slaughterbound.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and generally, to be honest, that might be potentially the more competitive way to do it. Just because Jackals have really grown on me because I've played a lot of Death Guard games, because there's a lot of like competitive Death Guard playing at like top tables where I am. And Jackals are the only really thing in our army that can kill Poxwalkers, like straight up by themselves on average. And it's really, really, really easy to base yourself in a way with Jackals that you can stay within the 6-inch aura that 8-bound provide to really help them like punch up. And their strength in the charge, like they can deal with a lot of chaff, And then with the 6-inch pile and consolidate, a scout squad, instead of spawn, basically being able to go up and kill it and then just go on to the objective. If that scout squad is in between two of the objectives at all, you're actually capable of that first, like Jackal squad, like that extra Jackal squad you have in there, charging, being within range of the 8-bound, plus 1 AP if you feel like you need it, and then being able to 6-inch pile and consolidate onto 2 objectives across the middle. So that way your opponent has to touch both. They can't just step on one and then shoot you off, or like you immediately sticky the other one, or they have to be in combat with you. And that's a really, really nice opening play. That when I was playing Death Guard before with my singles list, I was often giving up back screen screening with the Jackals, and instead my second Berserker squad that I had in my previous list would be screening until it hopped into the Rhino to take the place of the first squad that went out.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that the 2 Jackals in that second version of the list, so you'd have the Helm Prince, Slaughterbound with Glaive, Slaughterbound with Favored, and Karn, the Berserkers, and the Rhino, 2 squads of Spawn, 2 squads of Jackals, 2 squads of 8-bound, 2 squads of Exalted, and 2 squads of Forge Fiend. Sounds like Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
With all the 2s that you're bringing. But I genuinely think that those are probably the 2 lists that are going to emerge as the most competitive generally, that are the easiest pick up and play, give you all the tools. 2 squads of Exalted for ingress. You can attach or detach the Slaughterbound depending on your matchup. It's super flexible as well because of that.
Yeah, the versatility of the Slaughterbound is really, really good. The fact that you can go, you've only got 1 tank in your army, I'm just going to put them both in with my regular 8-bound, and I'm just going to, go nuts like that. Or you can be like, oh, you've got tons of tanks, I'm going to put them both with my Exalted. Or you've got a combined arms, I'm going to put one with each. Like, that versatility is really, really good. I like the symmetry of the list as well. Like, there's something about having it. I'm picturing a display board, and I'm like, I like that. That's nice and symmetrical.
Two.
Karn and his Rhino in the middle, everything else fanning around it. That sounds really, really good. That's a very,
honestly,
very
I'm
cool
really
list.
excited to play it. Yeah, I'm excited to play it. I'm obviously not going to coin it because there's probably plenty of other people that have written the same list because everybody kind of competitively gravitates towards the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably where we're going to end up, is something very, very close to that. Maybe niche players that like their own style of world leaders will have a little bit of a different spin on it. But I think that's the best plug and play kind of list for a warband.
Yeah, I think that's a really good place for people to start and then sort of adapt around it. That's always the way I recommend it, especially for people who are a little bit newer. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel yourself, take something like that's well-rounded and developed by professionals, so to speak, and then adapt it. If you go, you know what, I don't really feel the spawn, pull them out, put something else in. Like you can adapt from there. But if you start with
that is the worst unit to not feel. I promise you.
Well, I mean,
unreal.
They are, like, I think that, like, there's a lot of people saying, oh, you can't take 3 of them anymore because they went up, and I think that's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. Same with the Forge Fiends, as people are saying that they're dead in the water. I disagree. And like my approach whenever looking at these sorts of updates is to just take exactly what worked before, look at the new points, and then think, well, what do I have to change to make exactly what worked before still work? Instead of going, I'm having an emotional reaction to Forge Fiends getting nerfed, so they're in the bin, and I'm going to write this list that's got nothing but 8-bound because they got buffed, and you end up going down this crazy path, and you end up so much further from what you tried and tested that definitely works. So, yeah, that would be my plea to people, is to don't emotionally respond, just take what worked and tweak it. So, like, what we've done here is we're talking about, obviously the previous lists weren't so heavy on the 8-bound, so we're tweaking it. We're dropping a Forge Fiend and we're putting in those 8-bound, but we're not going, oh yeah, cool, it's 3 Land Raiders and it's full of 8-bound. Like, we're not completely flipping the list on its head.
And I do think that 2 Forge Fiends still has a really good role, and I've had a lot of good like experiences actually putting one of them in like strat reserves.
Yes, 100%.
Just to be present at some time in the board, like in my next movement phase. If you can't get them anywhere productive, it still changes how your opponent moves. So they're not going to be moving optimally because they're trying to be staying out of like the possible Forge Fiend lanes that you have from the second one coming in and around. And as far as the spawn go, I think it's still minimum 2. The reason why I'm comfortable dropping the third squad is because spawn extending to your opponent's like expansive is a great tool. Lots of times that first spawn squad is killing scouts, then getting back in the middle. Jackals have the same range to do that with actually more consistency, and they have the ability to help screen or chain across two objectives.
Yeah.
If you go first and you draw like area denial or whatever, I think it's a better substitute for that. But I'd still want the two squads to be able to extend, project threat range, and then change my opponent's deployment. Because if I have two spawn on either side of the board, my opponent is still going to deploy the same way they would as if I had three spawn.
Yes.
Right. Like it's not going to change much. But as soon as I go down to one, then they can start to. They know that's my like largest moving unit. Then they can start to kind of like deploy generously in other parts of the board, because they don't have to worry about everything. They just have to worry about this one section that I put the one unit to spawn in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I can see the substitution for one.
I think what you're describing there is something that I think would really benefit people to understand a bit more, is that sometimes when you're writing a list, the units that you're taking them not because of what they do, but because of what they force your opponent to do. So, for example, if you don't have any Forge Fiends in your army, you've got no shooting, your opponent can just deploy, they just deploy just outside of your charge range in the visible open. And there's nothing you can do about it. And they just kite you by staying at that optimal distance from your units. Whereas if the second you introduce a single Forge Fiend to the mix, well, now they can't do that. So I like to have at least one Forge Fiend deployed on the table, somewhere centrally near the deployment zone, so that if they try to deploy in the open there, you're going to jump out and shoot them. So they can't deploy there. And if they're going to go out that way, you're going to jump out and shoot them, so they can't go there. So it sort of forces them to make decisions. And then I really like having a second Forge Fiend in strategic reserves, because now your opponent has to spend a lot of like cognitive resources during their turn thinking he has a Forge Fiend in reserves. He could come on here, or he could come on there, or he could come on over here. And all of a sudden, they're wasting a lot of their time and their mental, facilities trying to prevent you from doing something. So it's not necessarily about what that Forge Fiend is going to do, because they might successfully prevent it from doing anything. It's about what you've forced them to do with their units. So I completely agree. A couple Forge Fiends is still, a very strong. I wouldn't say mandatory, but I'd say a very strong.
Yeah. I'd say you need to have either two or none, just because one is quite avoidable on the board. Yeah. But having either none and you're committing to the full melee is, in my opinion, a little less competitive, but it's completely fine, whatever you want to do. I think if you're going to include no Forge Fiends, then you need two Berserker Bricks, because 10-inch range, which our army has like a lot of 10-inch movement, is pretty easy to stay out of. And the reason why we were very successful in the Index is because we had access to Advance and Charge army-wide. Yeah. So if somebody was going to stay outside of our threat range, it was a really big threat range. But now if somebody wants to stay outside of our threat range, we've used our Berserker squad, it's actually very feasible for them to stand on their expansive and not have to worry about us making it from our terrain onto theirs. So I think that's why Forge Fiends are mandatory. And having the one Forge Fiend start on a board kind of centrally, like behind a piece of terrain. So depending on where your opponent goes on the board, they can either come up this way and see a lane, or come down this way and see a different lane. Yeah. And then having one up in strat reserves it locks down a lot of the board, and people play much differently because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can also do like let's not forget all of the awesome stuff that Forge Fiends can do with like their Overwatch, things like that, clearing screens, softening the unit up before your 8-bound or your spawn or something hit it. Like there's tons of things that a Forge Fiend can do, and just because it went up 20 points doesn't stop it from being amazing. And I think given that we got points reductions elsewhere, it's something that you definitely should still be considering bringing. But we did used to have a fair bit of success without them, so it's not the end of the world if people want to go down that purely combat path. It's just if you're going down that path, you need to really deep dive that 6-inch pilot and consolidate, really deep dive those combat tricks, because if you're going to try and win a gunfight with a chain axe, you need to make sure you know how to use it. So absolutely. So when's your next tournament? You just said you've got a couple of GTs coming up?
Yeah, so I have one in Calgary, which is where I live currently, next weekend, called Orchard of Ono. That is currently at 64, but I think the cap's being increased to 80 players.
Yep.
And then 2 weeks after that, I have the Edmonton Wargaming Open, which is in Edmonton, which is about 3 hours from me. And me and a few other guys on my team are traveling up to that. And then after that, it's just the World Championships in November.
Cool. So look forward to
Yeah.
following your results there. You got anything that you want to sort of touch on in terms of takeaways from the new index? No, the new, sorry, not the new index. The balanced data slate. Is there anything that you feel we missed?
I don't. I don't really think so. I wish I had a little more time to read some of the other armies, so I could do a little bit more of a deep dive of
Yeah.
potentially some things we're going to struggle with in the meta. But I think in general, we're in really, really, really good shape. Like even Eldar struggles against fast melee pressure. And honestly, the best way to get better is just to play games and then think about them afterwards.
Yeah.
Have discussions
Absolutely.
with your opponent on what could I have done. But now we certainly cannot use the army as an excuse because I think that it is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm very much looking forward to getting it on the table. And everybody locally was already not enjoying my world leaders. And I've already got a lot of messages
Yeah.
about how much they're further not enjoying them now.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited to bring them, and I'm excited to see some of the results. I don't doubt that Jack Harpster will be bringing them to World Championships. So will Brian, and then hopefully we can get some really, really, really good finishes for our faction.
How about the three of you
Yeah.
just lock in the podium? Let's get a fully
That-
world leaders podium.
yeah, I
It's
will.
doable.
I'll
It's
agree.
doable.
I'll agree to that as long as I don't have to commit anything if it doesn't happen. Yeah. No guarantees. It's yeah, no, it'll be a lot of fun. Last year was interesting. The entire first day was heavy terrain layout 7. Then the entire second day was the most sparse like terrain layouts. So I
Yeah.
think GW is probably gonna do something like that again. But it's an event I'm really looking forward to. Last year from my province, it was just me and another gentleman from my city that traveled. But this year we really stepped up competitively in our city.
Yeah.
And now there's 10 of us from our city that are qualified to go to
Oh
the World
wow.
Championships
Nice.
because we've been traveling around Canada taking everybody else's tickets. So it's good. And then obviously applications for the Canadian WTC team start sometime soon. So I think
Yes, I see you
that's
guys had
something
a bit
I
of
could
a
look forward
change in
to as well.
leadership as well over there. Is that, did I read that correctly?
Yeah, they're doing like a new captain and a lot of the older guys. There's kind of being like a team overhaul.
Yep.
So there'll be a lot of younger guys coming onto the team to try and like build for like the future.
Yep.
And obviously it'll be big shoes to fill because we just had our best finish yet competitively for the WTC team.
Yep.
But there's quite a few guys that I know we're putting our names in for it, and then we'll see what we can do. And then hopefully, if all goes well, I'll be able to bring world leaders to like WTC next year, and that would be awesome.
Hell yeah. Well, hopefully I'll see you there. I know that
Yeah,
when it comes to building your national team, it's striking that balance between having those veteran
yeah,
players with the knowledge and the experience, but also bringing in the new blood because you don't want to get stale. You want to have those fresh opinions and that fresh perspective. So it's always interesting to see when other nations are going through sort of those changes, that transitional stage. It's always exciting to see and get to meet some new people while we're over there is always fun. So I look forward to
yeah,
hopefully seeing you over there. Would be good.
yeah.
And
Hopefully,
hopefully I'll
yeah,
be
it'd be
able to
awesome.
join you for one of the WCWs perhaps next year. This year, unfortunately, I can't make it, but
Yeah,
life has its way of getting in the way. But WTC is one that I'll tell life to get out of the way for. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's more than fair.
yeah,
Yep. Yeah, no,
awesome.
it's exciting tournament season.
Alrighty, awesome. Well, thanks for your time, man. Make sure you let me know when you're attending tournaments so that I can keep an eye out for them and follow your progress. Because I have no doubt that you're going to be putting up some wins for the World Eaters and showing everybody how it's done. So it'll be really good to
Hopefully.
sort of pick your brain when you do, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, hopefully I don't bring my new list that I was just gassing up and then get absolutely spit on my next two
You've just got to
events.
lean on the standard excuses, right? Like I rolled
Yeah,
poorly, I
my
was
dice.
hungover that
Yeah,
day, my opponent
yeah,
cheated. Like
yeah,
there's plenty of excuses
yeah,
we can drum up for
yeah,
you, mate. Don't worry about
yeah.
it.
That's true. Okay, I'll let you know how it's looking after the first day, and if I need a few excuses, I'll slide in on you for sure.
Yep,
Yeah.
sounds good, man. Alrighty, awesome. Well, thanks for your time, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.